everyone. Do want to go ahead and let you know we do have a slideshow, a presentation as it were. I believe we have about 8 slides, and then we're going to leave some time at the end of the presentation for some Q&A. And of course, we're going to have several members from Growing to New Heights team to answer some questions, staff, and of course, we are very, very excited and very thankful for all that Hanco and Chris Hudson have contributed to this project, and so he himself will be answering your questions. We do ask that if you have any questions, if you could hold them to that Q&A time, because otherwise we might get a little confused. You know, if you know me, I can get very easily confused when things get a little bit out of whack. And so would encourage you, we're going to go ahead and start off by looking at a little bit of a timeline of how we've gotten here. And maybe you're not like me. I have a hard time remembering when I say yesterday, was it yesterday or last month? And some of the things we're going to be talking about tonight actually had their roots all the way back in 2008. And so that means we need to just do a little bit of looking back and seeing where we are, and also looking forward. Now, I will go ahead and preface this. This is going to be a little bit abbreviated. When I had all the minutes from the various team meetings over the last 5 or 6 years, and all the votes and all that information, it was almost 22 pages single-space typed, and I didn't think you wanted to hear all that tonight from me. So just rather quickly, as mentioned earlier this morning and in your bulletins and in the emails you received, in the spring of 2008, Ridgely Heights Baptist Church began to meet in 2 separate Sunday morning services because we simply couldn't hold everyone. And then, of course, in the spring of 2017, because we saw that there was insufficient space, even with 2 spaces and overflow that we had been running for almost a year in the multi-purpose facility, we developed a facilities expansion team. And eventually we did a survey. And in the spring of 2017, we began to explore and pray about the idea of building a sanctuary. And 77% of those who voted believed we needed a new sanctuary. And so the facilities expansion team was formed in 2017. Many of you know Brother Andy Lucas, who was the head of that team and led that team well. And in 2018, in a moving forward period, that is when the team recommended to Ridgely Heights that $10,000 be set aside to develop a floor plan elevation drawing for a potential sanctuary. And of course, some of those funds would also go to developing a capital gains campaign. And it's also in 2018 where we partnered with Mississippi Baptist Convention, a gentleman by the name of Brother Rick Blythe, who came and discussed how we would even partner with the state and how they could help us along and kind of guide us in a capital gains campaign. And of course, the deacons and the leadership, all of Ridgely Heights, came together April 24th and did that. And we saw an amazing thing happen. We saw all kind of proposals come, presentations of new sanctuary, of how we would do it. And we developed a presentation in August of 2018, and it was decided that is what we would do. We would go ahead with the Growing to New Heights program. And then in 2019, the campaign officially launched in March, and it garnered $450,000 in commitments over a 3-year period. And you're going to hear a little bit later on in the presentation, I believe Brother Steve's going to speak on just how much more than that estimate has already come in and how much more is estimated coming in. And so during that time, we committed to a 3-year period of giving, and that period is going to be ending in this year, 2022. And the Growing to New Heights team began reviewing info from Hanco and Chris Hudson and his associates about what a potential building would look like, what a design build project would look like, and those types of things. Then in 2020, with continued meetings with the Growing to New Heights team and meetings with Brother Chris Hudson of Hanco, we were given a floor plan. Many of you over the last few years have looked in the fellowship hall, right, in the multi-purpose facility, just as you come in through the double doors. You've seen that floor plan, and many people looked at it and talked about it and asked questions about it. And so the floor plan of a new sanctuary was given. A potential budget of $1.57 to $1.7 was given at that time. And then we had set up a presentation to be had on March 29th at the 6:30 service. But many of you know what happened that day. That is the day that most of the churches in Jackson County were asked to shut down because of COVID-19. And because of the effects of COVID-19 and the continued shutting down, shutting down, that presentation was put off till a further date. And then, of course, 2021, we started meeting again. Our Growing to New Heights team started meeting again early November. In fact, our first meeting was November 8th. And so that's when we started reviewing the commitments, how much money had come in. Now we were in a reevaluation period trying to figure out, do we still need a sanctuary the original size we had talked about? What are the cost differences? Because if you notice, things cost a little bit more than what they used to. And so all those things were happening. So we spent several months, about 2 months, November and December, talking about that. And then, of course, in December 8th, we begin to look at summaries and proposals from Hamco. And, of course, you're going to see more of those figures come on as the night goes on. And also, during that time, we voted as a team to move forward with bringing this to you, the Ridgely Heights Baptist Church membership. And so tonight we're going to be going through that, and you will have a chance to look at plans, floor plans, elevations. You will have a chance to look at figures and ask those questions at the end of the presentation. So thank you so much. Brother Steve.
Thank you, Brother Dustin. I appreciate that. And I'm going to share some overheads that we have for tonight. But before I do that, I want to let you inside the brain of a pastor for a few minutes and just share a few things. Don't always know what the perfect will of God is. So when I don't know what the perfect will of God is, I go to the Lord in prayer and begin to ask, what do you want us to do, Lord? And I'm going to share with you, before we were going to come with the proposal back before COVID hit us, I was praying through this and didn't feel like I was hearing exactly what God wanted us to do. So I prayed more intensely for about 2 days, and then I picked up the next morning, I picked up my Bible, and I was reading through the Bible. And it just so happens that I was in the book of Chronicles. Now, don't y'all just love the book of Chronicles? When I go to the book of Chronicles, I do not think to myself, oh, gee, I'm going to get to see something wonderful in here today. But I'd cried out to God, and I just needed a word from Him. And I'm not saying this is an absolute word from God, but I do want you to know what I read in my regular reading on the day that I just cried out to God and said, Lord, show us what it is that you want us to do. And this is one of the passages that comes from 2 Chronicles chapter 2 and verse 4. And this is what I was reading. It's about, let me set the context up just a little bit. David had asked God if he could build him a sanctuary, if he could build him a temple, if you would, a temple. And God said, no, I don't want you to build the temple because you got too much blood on your hand, David. But your son Solomon is going to come behind you and build this temple. David passes away. 2 Chronicles chapter 2, we see where Solomon comes in and he's establishing his kingdom. And he knows that it's now time to build the tabernacle or the temple that he needs to, and he cries out and he says this to he was talking with one of the kings around, and he said, behold, I'm about to build a house for the name of the Lord my God and dedicate it to him for the burning of incense and sweet spices before him, and for the regular arrangement of the showbread, and for the burnt offering morning and evening, and on the Sabbath and on the new moons and the appointed feast of the Lord as ordained forever. The house that I am to build will be great, for our God is greater than all gods. But who is able to build him a house, since heaven, even the highest heaven, cannot contain him? Who am I to build a house for him, except as a palace to make offering before his name, a place to make offering before his name? So now send me a man skilled to work in gold and silver and bronze and iron and purple and crimson and blue fabrics, and trained also in engraving, to be the skilled worker who with me in Judah and Jerusalem, whom David my father provided. Send me also the cedars and things. And it goes on and it says, and my servants will be with your servant to prepare the timber and for the house that I am about to build. And then it goes on in verse 13, and it says, then the Lord sent a man. And that's where I come from as I've talked with Chris Hudson over the last couple of years, is I personally believe that this is as honest of a businessman as I've ever seen. One of the things that the committee thought we should do, and we discussed this early through the process, is to do what's called a design build. So in a design build, you don't have an absolute set of plans, but you have a concept that you want to go for. And we presented that concept to Chris and showed him what we were thinking, and this is kind of how we've gotten to where we are at this point. So instead of rehearsing all the things that happened, let me just pick up in about September, October, November, and December this past year. We kind of were trying to figure out what the will of God was. The cost of the building had gone up tremendously, and the size of the building was probably a little bigger than we needed, because we're not as big as we were 5 years ago. We're still too big for everybody to be in one service, and we're still going to grow, but we're not as big as we used to be because of the COVID factor that's come in. That kind of changed everything. So as we began to rack our brains and ask God, what is it that we need to do? We kind of went back to some basic information. The basic information we went back to, one of the people on the committee asked me, well, Brother Steve, what was your vision for the building? And it kind of sent me back thinking. I had to wait till the next meeting before I could answer that. Because on this particular building, God didn't give me a vision for the building. In other words, and instead of that, he gave me a vision for how that he would supply the needs to originally to be able to build the building. In other words, he showed me how financially we would be able to build that building. So we knew that we had something to work with, which would be $1.2 million plus whatever we raised in the capital grant gains program we came together. So that's where we got. Now this as we began to work closer to this the last month, we came to a threefold conclusion. I think I've got a slide here that's got three points on it. Here we go. The threefold desire of the Growing to New Heights team. Before we made the decision to move forward, we knew there were three things that we wanted to satisfy. Number one is each team member was in agreement that the family of God at Ridgely Heights needed to be in a single service. And I'll use today for an example. We had a wonderful service, and both services were wonderful this morning. We had a young man who joined the church this morning, had been coming here for about 6 months, and his name was Michael Broom, and friends of Mike Martin over here. They kind of grew up in the same area and whatnot, and they joined the church this morning. As he joined the church this morning, many of you in here tonight don't know who that is because you weren't here at the 11 o'clock service when that took place. So those kinds of things can work a little better if we're in one setting. The second thing that the team began to think about is each team member wanted to do one particular thing, and that's whatever the will of God was. That whatever we did, it didn't need to be what we wanted to do, it needed to be whatever the will of God was. And then the third thing that we agreed on was that each team member understood that when the will of God is known, we want to move as quickly as we possibly can. Because if the Lord says this is what we're supposed to do, we wanted to move quickly from that. So that's kind of how we got to this point. Now, here's a couple of figures and some things that will come out about the new proposal, and I'll kind of break this into two parts. If I have a next slide for just a second. Now, this is going to be a little bit hard to see from where you're at because of the size, but the building that we will be building would be right outside the building we're in here, and it would connect to the multipurpose building right over here. Will be about 7,056 square feet. It's going to seat approximately 350 people. It would have, it would be at a cost. Hanco would be charging us $1.65 million for the building. Now, this would allow us to fit within the range that we had because of the Growing to Heights. We had raised so much money and we had this loan, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. What that would include would be the building, but there might be three costs that we would run in and have to take care of ourselves. Number one, we would have to, when we put chairs in there, whatever we put in there, we have to come up with the money for that. If there was a sprinkler system that has to be put in there, we would have to come up, we would be responsible for the purchase price of that sprinkler system. And then we would also be responsible for, what was the third thing? Say that. The sound system that goes over in there. Thank you very much. So we knew that those could be in addition to that. Now, I want to share with you the success of the Growing Together We Build campaign. You committed as a church to raise $450,000 over a 3-year period. Well, I want to report to you that you've received, and we've had more than $450,000 come into that If we're not over that, we're within dollars of being over that. If we receive the addition, we have several people who have given much more than what they committed to give. We also, if we receive all the monies that have been pledged, we will receive $595,000 over that 3-year period, and we'll probably receive about another 100,000 or so this year. We've already received, like I say, almost 450,000. So you see how that money is rolling in there. So just wanted to give you that little bit of information. Let's see. And we also know that we'll have to borrow a new loan, and we sent packages out to people to find out what they would loan the money to the church for. We sent them with all of our financial records, and they're beating the doors down trying to come to Ridgely and loaned us some money. And we had one for like 3.25, one for 3.45, and then we've got others that are getting back with us this particular week. So that's some information. But now let's get back to Hanco Corporation just here. I want to say this. I got another slide that has some places that Hanco has built. Do y'all remember when the tornado came through Hattiesburg? That's been 5 or 6 years ago. It's been a while. And it tore William Carey up. Well, Hanco is the company that came in and rebuilt all the buildings that was on the property, and everybody was totally pleased with that. One of the churches that's near us is up on Highway 26, Shady Grove Baptist Church. If you're coming out of 26, a big, beautiful building. We've talked to the people there. First Baptist Church, Bay St. Louis, which was rebuilt after Katrina. First Baptist Church, Purvis, Mississippi, all of which give great recommendations to Hanco and Chris and the company. But now, just this past year, the Catholic Church, Most Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Pass Christian, just used Chris and his company to build a building for him, and they're totally happy with the project. Well, in fact, we got a letter sent to us just this week from the project manager from the church over there, just overwhelmingly thankful to the things that had taken place. The proposal itself here, at this point in time, would cost us $1.65 million, but we would have some. So we have plans that show how many doors are in there. We have plans that tell us how much money can be spent on doors. I think it's, if I'm not right, if you correct me if I'm wrong, is up there on there $1,000 per door opening in there. Or either you might be looking at the flooring is $30 a square foot when you put the flooring down. So we have these kinds of numbers that were in the first proposal that we had 2 years ago. Those numbers are still the same, but the size of the building has been reduced down. We won't be building the walkway that we hope to build, but we will be having the building. It'll just be reduced in size a little bit. I think the stage is a little bit smaller than what the other was. Also, it does not include those 3 things that we mentioned earlier. Here's a quick look at the floor plan. If y'all just give me the next screen real quick. Now, I know that's real hard for you to be able to see. Tonight, when we end up, if you want to come down here and take a look at the floor plan of this, you'll be able to look at that. And all week, this week, tomorrow, we'll go set up a presentation booth in the multi-purpose building so that anytime during the week, if you want to come by and take a look at it, study some of the plans that we've got, we'll be happy to let you take a look at that. We also have an elevation view. So to give you, I think the elevation view may give you a little more understanding. You see that picture is broken into 2 pictures. If you were to stand on Highway 613 at the church and look at it right now, what you would see is the picture that's on top. But after the new building is constructed, what you would see is that picture that's right down below that 350-seat auditorium that we would have right there. Now, what we have to do is we have to let the Holy Spirit speak to everybody in the church, because we believe in the priesthood of the believer, which means the Holy Spirit is in us, and when God wants us to do something, He's going to communicate to all of us. So our job is going to be to decide, is this the will of God to proceed, or is it not the will of God to proceed? So that's what we'll be voting on next week. Now, how will the vote be handled? I think I've got a screen for that, too. So if you bring another screen up there, the next screen up.
That's all I got.
That's it? That's all you got? Okay. Voting on in January the 2nd, this is the way that will work. Next Sunday, there will be ballots over in the multipurpose building, and you can go by there. If you are a member of Ridgely Heights Baptist Church, you can go by and pick up one of those ballots. And then you can, we're not going to ask you how you vote. We're just going to let you pick up a ballot, sign in that you picked up your ballot, and then you cast a vote. Yes, I believe it is the will of God that we contract with Hanco, or no, I do not believe it is the will of God that we contract with Hanco at this particular time. So you'll be able to cast that vote, and then after the day is over, we'll count those votes up and let you know how that turns out. Now, when can you do that? You can do that pretty much any time the church is, the doors are unlocked on Sunday. Next Sunday, I think we had originally said it'd be 8 o'clock, but I think next Sunday we have Brotherhood Breakfast. So in that case, the church will be open about somewhere between 4:30 and 5 o'clock. So if you want to come at 4:30, 5 o'clock and cast your votes, you can do that. And it'll be open till about 12:30. And then the church will open back up again around 5 o'clock-ish or so and be open till probably 7:30 to 8 o'clock that evening. You can come by and cast your vote. Now, I know a lot of you have a lot of questions. And at this time, Brother Chris, would you come on up here and stand and get close to me? And you want to be on the floor or you want to be up here?
I'm going to be by the door.
You're going to find that you like this guy. So come on up here so that they can hear what you have to say. Before we take questions, you want to say anything?
Brother Steve asked me to come down. I told him, I said, yeah, let me go down there. Let me be the one that y'all take shots at. But that was before I knew you had a see-through podium. There's really nothing to hide behind. My name's Chris Hudson. I'm from a little town called Summerall, Mississippi, which is about 15 miles west of Hattiesburg. I grew up in the country. I went to a country church called Midway First Baptist Church. We're a BMA church. Where I grew up, where I still go. I'm 59 years old. My life is shorter that I'm looking towards than when I'm looking back. I've been in the construction business since I was 14. Worked for my dad's company. I learned everything about the construction business, from shoveling, made a journeyman carpenter, went to Southern Miss, got a degree in construction engineering, graduated in '88. And that's pretty much all I've ever done in my life as far as a career. I heard my wife say the other day that she's been happily married for 34 years. And I said, Lisa, we've been married 37. She said, yeah, but 3 of them wasn't very happy. I said, okay. I've been saved since I was 28 years old. I grew up in the church. I was a Sunday school director since when I was 18 years old. I wasn't a saved Sunday school director, but I was a Sunday school director. You can do it, but you're a lot better at it when you're saved. God's blessed me to be in the construction business. I worked with my dad's company for 20 years. One of my best friends, who was a minister, Bill Hanbury, his brother preaches in Hattiesburg. My best friends asked me to go in the construction business with him, and I did. I left my dad's company, and the Lord blessed us. We started in 2003, and I bought Phil out 7 years ago when his daughter got sick. We've done many, many projects. We did William Carey on the coast. Lord's opened doors for us that I don't even understand, but He's always opened doors for us. We built College of Business at Southern Miss, built College of Nursing. We rebuilt William Carey College in 8 months after the storm. It tore up 44 buildings. It did $130 million worth of damage. We had them back going in 7 or 8 months. I've always enjoyed building churches. In our regular life, we don't make money building churches. Our money that supported our business and has grown our business has always come from working for the government at Camp Shelby, which we've done many projects, or from USM, or from Hattiesburg Clinic, or from those kind of entities. But when you're dealing out there in the world, it's tough. But the Lord's always opened doors for us to be able to deal with His people in building churches. And it's very important to me that continue. I take pride in the churches and the people that we've met across this state, from Yazoo City to Oxford, to Meridian, Collinsville, back down to the coast. I believe Shady Grove is the furthest we've gone to the southeast, but if we do this project, this will be the furthest we've gone to the southeast. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your pastor. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to try to answer any question. What I would ask you to do is ask me anything that's on your heart, anything. And if I can't answer it, I'm going to give you an answer. But if I don't satisfy you with the answer, let me try to satisfy you with it. Let me give you all the information I can give you so that you can make a decision, a prayerful decision on what you need to do going forward. Our church that I grew up in decided to build a new sanctuary. This is personal to me. My mom and dad pushed the new sanctuary. My grandparents, who were in the same church, were dead against the new sanctuary. Somehow it got out of getting questions answered and trying to find out what the Lord's will was for that project, and it become personal. And I've seen through my own personal life, families split up over a church project, which is hard for me to believe that it was the Lord's will. I don't know if it was the Lord's will for it to be built or not to be built. All I know is it wasn't His will to split a family up over. So the last thing you want to do is have some kind of animosity over a church building. This is just a building. Y'all are the church. So ask me anything I can do or anything that I can answer that would help you make up your mind, vote your conscience, and then roll on one way or the other. So I'm voting for questions.
And at this time, I want to reiterate something here. We're not, as a committee and as the pastor, I am not asking you to rubber stamp this thing. I want you to ask questions, so please ask some questions. Who's the first one that's got a question to ask?
What was the original size of the building as far as how many people it would hold?
The original size of the building that we had, Chris, you remember, you want to
I think it was 425 is what it would hold max. It's in that neighborhood, depending on how many you want to put in the choir, or if you want to put chairs in the choir. I see you got pews. That was another thing. A lot of churches, you'll have 50% of the people that want pews, 50% of the people want chairs. Typically, you will sit more people in a sanctuary with chairs than you will with pews. They'll sit by each other in a chair, but they won't sit by each other in a pew. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. So it's 425, I believe, was in that neighborhood.
And now it would be 325.
Well, no, it's 350 now.
It's going to be 350.
We moved the sound booth
Right.
back to pick and it probably could seat a few more than that. There's some handicap seating and some area up front in the altar that could be utilized. I think you could get probably 20 more seats in there. But your max comfortably would be probably 350.
Probably, I think we were trying to figure that out just this week. So, yeah, you have comfortably and uncomfortably, and I think we said we could seat about, y'all,
Somewhere around 160.
around 160 is there. Last Christmas Eve, we fixed enough juice and bread for 200, and we had, 20 left over? Or,
I think we estimated we had somewhere between 150 and 60.
okay, so and there was no place else left to sit. I think there was one pew where you could have got a few.
166.
Okay,
That's my count, was 166.
166, and that was, and that was jam-packed in here at that point, so, okay. All right, any other I know y'all are asking, I'm jumping in and answering.
No, that's
these. I know
fine.
You don't know the answers to those, so. All right, yes, ma'am.
Is there a plan for future expansion if we're reducing now?
Is,
What I'm
is,
saying?
you hear that, Chris?
Is it being built in a way?
Well, I don't know, can we go back to that, this,
You want this one, Chris?
This is that answer kind of goes along with her. Wade Baptist had a balcony. Is the ceiling gonna be high enough to go in and put maybe a balcony on the highway side, or whichever, on the back side here? Would the ceiling be high enough that you could put a balcony in there and seat maybe another 50, 75 people?
no, sir.
No?
You won't be able to put a balcony in this sanctuary after it's built. What we did, right now, it's got a carter that services the outside doors going out the front of the church here. And it's basically goes all the way around this new sanctuary. This wall right here can be removed, and this wall here be removed, which you'll lose your carter, but you'll be able to pick up another 50 to 70 people in those two areas to seat. But whenever you get to a 400 capacity on this church, that's it. And everything's driving the size and the capacity of this church is a budget. That's what we're trying to stay within. To answer your question, no, sir, you won't be able to put a balcony. But there is a plan for some growth. No more than 50 folks. But so 400 people, if you take those two walls out, would be, I mean, that's gonna be the max.
All right, all right. Other question? Yes, ma'am, Ms. King.
Looking at the plans, I couldn't figure out how many exit doors to the building there are. Can you-
How many?
No.
How many exit doors?
Exit doors? According to the code, you gotta have so many based on the people in the district so far. But the way this plan is, there'll be two going out on the southeast corner. That's two. You got
That's
one,
behind the pulpit.
ma'am?
That's behind the pulpit.
No, ma'am, that'll be going, picture that building, a rectangle out there, that'll be going out of
To the highway.
the front side of the building.
Oh, okay.
You'll have two going out there, you got one going out behind the pulpit in the choir area, then you got another pair of doors that would be going out on the other corner that would be going to the future covered drive-through, and then you got two pairs of doors that go out from the educational building. As you come into that atrium area, you'll have two sets of doors, pair of doors going out of that area.
In case of some unimaginable emergency, would that be sufficient to get the people out fast?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Chris?
Real fast.
In your experience, Steve, don't we have a minimum right now of about 180? Because some people are right now in both services, so they wouldn't be in both
Yeah,
services.
yeah,
So right now, we're looking at about 180. So doesn't the 350 seem like a good number? I mean, as opposed to I don't want to sit in a church that feels empty.
Right.
But I don't want us to build too small and regret that. And I'm sure y'all feel the same way. But if we're at about 180 right now, and I know that doesn't include the kids that would be in other places, but they're not going to be in here most of the time. So what do you feel about that?
The way this particular church is built and designed, it's on a fan shape. So you'll start your seating ever how close you want to be to Brother Steve, and then you go from that point back to 200 seats if you've got 180 folks coming. So that'll be your first step. Maybe 20% more than that just for people that would come in. And in the area that you're talking about looking lonely would be behind that. So with this fan shape, the way it's designed, you won't have that lonely feeling inside of that sanctuary.
But it will be big enough.
I think so. Now I don't know You know, 2 or 3 years ago, or 4 years ago when we were here, we were talking, you know, had a lot of folks coming. And I don't know how long it's gonna take to get that back. But that is the goal, to get it back. But I think you're building like 70, another 45 to 50% more capacity. So maybe as much as 70% capacity.
It's a good bit. Now, and I can't tell you the future, but I do think the committee has discussed those numbers being sufficient for several years. And the committee, and we're in agreement on that we felt like the numbers would hold for a really long time. So, okay. All right, other questions? I know you got some more.
Will the floor of the sanctuary be sloped?
No, sir.
No, okay. So so that would enter to more multi-purpose use too. So you could remove the chairs.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
That's correct. There's 2 reasons we didn't slope the floor. One is a fan shape. So everybody in that, the whole 350 people full will be like from here to that back wall right there. Everybody will be just like this, close to Brother Steve. There won't be anybody far. If you stayed on the, as I call it, the front row of the church, which is the back pew, that's where I sit, on the back pew, then you're going to be closer than you are now to it. So if it's flat and we have growth like you expecting to have, want to have, then we make that building another building. Then we build a bigger. We build a bigger. And you can utilize that space.
All right, yes, ma'am.
So will the chairs, will it be staggered like this?
Just look in the corner of the picture, she can see it better.
Yes, see, I can't really tell.
It's really small. You'll have,
4 sections.
yeah, you're gonna still have, you're gonna have, in this church, you're gonna have 3 aisles, okay? You're gonna have a center aisle, so when you have weddings, that you come down the center aisle of the church. Then you're gonna have 2 outside aisles, or 2 45, 40, 90 degree, or whatever they are, aisles that go on that. Those are gonna be straight. When you're looking at the chairs, they're gonna be straight like that pew, line of pews there.
The outside too would be angled. Though.
Correct.
They're too small.
That's correct.
And one other question, from start to finish, how long would it take? And would this be the only site you would be working on? Like, I mean, it's like a Monday through Friday thing, 8 hours a day, or is it like 2 days this week, 2 days next week?
I mean, when we move on site, we'll move on site with one of our crews. Our crews will consist of a superintendent who will be there every day. And they will work 5 or 6 days a week. And they typically work 8 to 10 hours a day. And depending on what they got going on, they will be there every day. That's the only project he'll be on, and his guys. Now, we'll have 14 other projects going on. Because like I said, this isn't how we make our living. So we'll have stuff going on, hopefully. We don't have a lot going on right now, but the goal, we're supposed to have more than one project going.
And from start to finish, that's how long?
I would say 14 months. Because depending on when you vote to get it awarded, we still got the spring to go through, and that's the wettest time of the year. Typically, it's hard to get out of the ground. But I would say 14 months.
14 months from the time we say go, and it'll be complete.
Correct.
And I'm gonna ask this question, because I'm curious. Can you contain everything in that one area?
Yes.
So that we can function as a church without interrupting us?
Yes, we'll have a project fence, a safety barrier between any of your youth or adults or anybody for that matter. But yes, you will be able to operate just like you operate. If you've got to use the doors to that multi-purpose on that end, then we will have that blocked off so that you can utilize that.
Okay.
Um,
And let me make one announcement right now that we hadn't really said yet. So we have a few of our seniors that actually park right over here in this section where the new building's gonna go to. We are in the process, or we set some funds aside to purchase a golf cart so that we could have somebody go by and pick up the seniors out in the parking lot and bring them up to the front of the church during the project that's going on, so.
If you'd like to look at that seat a little closer, there's a drawing up here where you can get right down on it and see exactly how that seating is.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Okay, yes, sir.
I just wanted to mention that because we're looking at a chair arrangement, that lends to a multi-purpose, ability. So you can arrange it for whatever, suits the purpose, a funeral or a wedding or different service.
So they're not built in, is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
they are movable. They will be, I believe they will be connected together, but they are disconnectable and movable. Is that correct? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
What's gonna happen to this sanctuary if the other one's built? What's the plans for this?
Okay, the decision was kind of fluid on that, and that decision will be based on, after the other building is built, where the youth department is and where the children's department is. And wherever the greater need is, then we feel like that's who will wind up with this building. And the other one, we get the other building over here, which will actually free up the multi-purpose building during the service time, so.
Yeah, the addition of a sprinkler system and audio video system is quite intrusive. What have you done in the past during the construction to make sure that you don't finish and, everything you're doing, and then they have to incorporate these systems?
Typically, every building we do has a sprinkler system. So we handle it under our contract and go along with it. Based off the size, this is gonna be a code issue and a water supply issue out here. I don't think you're gonna have to have it. That's the reason it's not included right now. That might not turn out just like I want it to. We may have to do it. And if we do it, and we have to do it, then we will work with whoever the church decides is gonna do the sprinkler work. And, it won't be intrusive. We'll work together and we'll make sure they get it in.
So they'll be included in your design? And then
Correct.
You do the same thing with audio video?
Well, the audio visual, that's a little different. We'll do all the chases, all the conduit. We would provide anything that's in the wall or under the slab. After you choose who you want and we meet with them, we'll supply the race flags.
Okay.
Audio visual systems you can go from 10,000 to.
We've got a guy here who's helped me over the years, his name's Eric Ross, and he's helped me with every system we've ever had. I brought him in early on the project, and he helped us get a budget, and we budgeted $30,000 for that.
How will we use it?
And that is also lighting too, specialized lighting that we'll work with you to integrate within his house lighting, and so that everything works seamlessly on that. Eric has agreed to come in and kind of run that for us, and we are going to incorporate every bit of the sound equipment that we have here, except maybe this speaker. We may use it somewhere, but there's some things we can't use over there. But just about, I would say 80 to 90% of what we have here is transferable to this new building. So we're going to save a lot of money on that. So that increases our budget for the lighting. So we're going to work on getting us really good lighting, and with your budget too. So we work together on that. That's the beautiful thing about design build too, is you will work with us, right?
Yes.
What is it?
Yeah, sound booths in the back.
No, it's in the front.
I don't know, man. Whatever that is. Okay. This one's
It's in the front of the church, which would be what you'd consider back there, just like you got there.
Chris, you got any pictures by chance of the Shady Grove? Or?
Sure. Go online and look at hancocorp.com. You can see a lot of the stuff that we built. It's not updated all the way, but you can see a lot of the stuff that we built that way.
That it would be something that would be similar to what your picture kind of here for us, that one, the Shady Grove one, would you say?
Well, yes, well, Shady Grove is a church we built. It's more traditional like what you've got here. This is not really traditional. This is gonna be more like, we got some on there like Collinsville Baptist. That's a church up in Meridian. Pedal Harvey, that would be two that you could look at. And we got Pedal Harvey, yes ma'am. They would be very close to what we're talking about here as far as what you see inside of it.
And Chris, I think one of the questions I asked you was comparable buildings. You said it would be nicer than the multi-purpose building, but not quite as ornate as this one.
Yeah, this right here is what I really wanted to build for you, is to match this building with a bigger edifice. But this is very expensive to build these days. You know, a traditional church with stained glass, ornate woodwork, it's very expensive to build. I'd love to do it. So it'll be more like the multi-purpose building that you've already got as far as finishing. It'll be, if you go online and look at those two churches, Pedal Harvey and Collinsville Baptist, that'll give you an idea of what it'll look like on the inside. It'll be very similar to that.
All right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
is it flat roof or pitch roof?
The roof is 4 and 12 pitch,
Okay.
standing seam.
Internal, I'm talking about.
On the inside, it's going to be, well, it's going to end up being pitch.
Okay.
It's going to end up being pitch. Now, some of those finer details, we hadn't gone as far in design yet until we find out if the church wants to build it. But it will end up pitch. Yes.
Yeah, as far as the superintendent, who all, will that be the only person that actually works for your company? Or do you have your own iron workers, your own plumbers?
We have, each particular project that we will have a superintendent on site all the time. We'll have a project manager in my office that handles that project. He'll not only handle that project, but he has 3 other projects that he handles as well. On the site, we typically have 3 to 4 mechanics, is what I call them. Now, these mechanics can do anything from tie steel, the formwork for concrete, turn 2-side forms, 1-side forms, wall forming. So we typically do our own concrete. We hire a finisher. We bring one of our finishers in to finish. As far as this particular building will be a metal type building. We'll probably erect the steel ourselves. We have our own erection crews. Depending on how busy they are, we may have to sub it out. It all depends on the timing on some of that stuff. All the drywall framing, the metal stud framing, we have our own crews that do that also. We actually have our own mechanical division that does heating and air and plumbing, but I don't think they'll do this one. It's too far from the company. So.
And talking about the fire suppression or the sprinkler system, so if we were to have to put that in, we'd have to put in the supplementary water pump station?
Well, that's right. What we got to do is go to the governing agency here and find out by code if we can not utilize it, which I think we can. And we'll build it where all the fire exits, all the emergency egress is to code. I mean, unless it takes you longer than an hour, get out of your seat and go 30 feet. You're in trouble if it takes you longer than that. But if you can do that, you'll be fine. And it'll meet all the codes. But if we do have to have it, then we're going to check the water flows and stuff. And if you don't have enough water flow, which is typically what we find rurally, then we got to go with fire pumps and stuff like that. And that's when you really get into it.
Yeah, because I don't even think they have any kind of pressurized main going down the highway here.
Right.
To supply like a remote fill station for a fire truck.
But that's why they usually will work with you really good on churches. Because there is a thing between separation of church and state. But as long as you follow their ratings and getting people out, have enough egress and emergency egress, then you're okay typically. That's what we find.
That seems like
Most.
something very important that we need to find out
Yes.
first.
Well, I think if we have to have a sprinkler, we've looked at that too. You're going to be looking at $40,000. You have to have it. So I don't know that that'd be a deal killer or not. That's what you'd be looking at if you have to have it.
Is it based on the number of people or the size of the building?
Size of the building and the type construction that the building is. This will be a steel, masonry type building
With a metal roof?
with a metal roof. Yes.
What would that sound like in church?
You will not hear it. You will not hear it.
And there's no windows?
There is some windows, but you need to look at this plan. Like I said, this particular church has a corridor that runs around the sanctuary. So if you enter the corridor from the multipurpose building, you can go into the sanctuary, or you can go down a corridor and go out a different way of the building.
There are windows in the corridor.
On one side, there is. It's one side, but they're not like these. They're not ornamental type windows or a sanctuary.
And the entrance will be in the back.
Correct.
I'm not very good at drawing, I'm sorry.
That's correct.
And the reason for that, here's the reason for that. When the platform will be out towards the highway, and the back, all the restrooms are in the multi-purpose building, so that you can move to the back of the church to go out instead of having to go on the side.
So you will be at this end.
I'll be at that
It'll be
end.
like this one.
Yeah, it'll be like that, that's
Okay.
correct.
Well, see, whenever we built the fire station about 6 years ago, the planning commission just required us to put sprinklers in one area, we'll give a commercial where we restrict it overnight.
Oh, was that right?
And they may have changed, some of it didn't, that's what they made us do.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Not necessarily building related, but what about parking, accommodating all that many more cars at the same time, and then traffic flow around the building?
Well, the original design has a drive-through. It adds a new drive and a drive-through camera. Right now, due to budget constraints, it's still to be done in the future. As far as the parking, I think there's adequate parking on your site now, from what I understood, for 350. It may not be, I don't know, I just understood that it was. So as far as additional new parking, there is none.
I think there's parking for about 300, the suit about 300. I also want to say this at this point too. You know, we said we could have $1.2 million we could borrow, we were going to have $600,000. That means there'll be somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 that is not being spent on the building that can be used for the sprinkler system, for the AV, and for the chairs and things, and any other additional costs that we should come in contact with. So there's some of that's figured in there, not by him, but for my folks. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the windows are on that side of the corridor. There are no windows in the church?
No.
Since you have hallways down both sides, and then you got the platform in the front, there's not any, the back door's going into the other multi-purpose.
So lighting.
Yeah, so that's why lighting is so important, to make sure we get it in there.
And that gives us a lot more control over the lighting. There's been situations when we were wanting to do some kind of presentation, and I love these windows, but it makes it impossible because you can't control your lighting inside. So that is one reason why. I haven't been. We've talked some things again. All this kind of design stuff. There could be some ornamental type lighting inside. We've thought about some of that. So that could play out. But as far as natural lighting from outside, there won't be any except in the corridors.
What about backup lighting, like battery lighting,
Necessary.
power goes out?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Every fourth light will work in a power outage. I think it's every fourth one.
What would the lighting be like? If we got no outside windows, how bright would the lighting be?
Well, I don't know the exact foot candles that's going to be required, but I will tell you it's going to be substantially lit, but not to the point that Uncle Willis is going to get a sunburner on top of his head.
Is it going to be this lit?
More. A good bit more than this.
Okay.
A good bit more than this. And it's going to be on a dimming system so that you can bring it up to its full brightness, or down. And then that'll be the house light, what I call the house light. And they will be very similar to the light fixtures that you have now. They'll be LED type fixtures, but they'll be on a dimming system that you can bring them up and down. Now, some of the audio visual or the theatrical lighting, there'll probably be a bar that's going to have some area focus lighting that's going to be a little different that the people in the sound booth will have controls on also. But as far as the lighting, there is code requirements for it. And it'll be to a point where you can bring it higher than it needs to be and lower than it needs to be.
Just one comment, Canaan Assembly up here is built like that. There's corridors on each side, and there's no windows, so if anybody wants to stick their head in there, they have a big foyer. But
Also, Safe Harbor benefits is
it like that?
basically the same thing. The sanctuary itself is completely contained with corners on all four sides. So you go inside the sanctuary, there's no windows at all.
And that's some of the new, my granddaddy wouldn't like very much, but that's some of it.
How old is your granddad? Four Mile Creek's like that too.
Who's that now?
All right, did, Doc,
Just out of curiosity, the new plan, maybe way to go. Was there no way to expand this building we got? There's no way to go this way or that way, you being a contractor?
it was lots
Just
of
take
money.
what we have and expand it and still maintain the windows, the traditionalism, that sort of thing. Maybe that's not feasible, I'm just curious.
Yeah, in the early days, we did go through that process, looking at what that was gonna cost, and it was bunches and bunches, and it would also keep us from being able to worship while that was taking place in here. Because you'd have to redo the roof lines and everything.
It would cost more to expand this than to build a new one.
That's what we came up with 5 or 6 years ago, or more.
You think so, that's,
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I don't really know what the structure is inside this building. I assume it's
trust me. I was just thinking.
Wood truss?
In the box, you can go somewhere with it.
there. I mean, theoretically, you could, yes. I mean, you could put columns, you could put a beam, you could cut out a wall, and you could go that way, and you could go that way, and make it more of a
I'm
church.
not saying that's the best, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
being Catholic churches, they have an offset road over here, offset over there. You know, and that's what I just wanted.
You could do it, but your budget's gonna be really close to being the same. And I think it would just have to come down to what the church wanted to do. I mean, you'd probably get about the same, well, you'd get this building that would seat probably 350 people by doing it. Spend $1.6 million, $1.5 million, $1.6 million to get that done. And then you just still have an open lot there. Or this way, you could have a building for $1.6 million and have this building to do something if you got something that you want to do with it. If you don't have nothing to do with it, then that might be something that you want to consider. Now, we have done some of these churches where they got a Carter, Oak Grove United Methodist, Collinsfield, I think we did. We took some of their stained glass or the cut glass that they had and made fake windows and backlit them with light so that when you go into church, you think they're outside windows. They're not, but you think they are. You get the same effect as it. Now, you got a lot in you, and you could almost take every other window, still have enough windows for this, and do something like that there. You might could bring some of the old in with the new. I don't know, it's just an idea.
All right, I know we're kind of getting long, yes, ma'am.
I know you know the answer to this. The water supply for a fire hydrant, we've got a functional fire hydrant 300 feet up the street.
Right, sure.
The
Got a
side
line that
street.
goes right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody got, Jimmy?
Well, heating and air duct be exposed, concealed, or would be concealed?
It will be concealed.
We'll see. Okay.
That's right.
All right, what I want to say, because I know we're starting to run a little bit long, so Chris, if you hang around.
I'm here, yes, sir.
Casually with everybody.
I'm
If you
here.
got a question, Chris will be glad to come and answer that. So, can we kind of agree to move a little forward now, because I know watch dies right before the service starts. So,
One more.
one more,
How
okay.
high is the ceiling?
I think on the exterior wall, it's 14 foot to the edge of the ceiling. Now, that ceiling's gonna be splayed, so I can't tell you exactly where it's gonna go to, but 14 foot will be at the
This is 14, the minimum.
E height.
All right, well, thank you so much for chiming in. You did a good job asking questions, and I do appreciate that. I would like to close out with a time of prayer, if that's all right. I'd like to have just an invitation, if somebody would like to join the church and be saved, come down front, I'll share with you how you can do that. But then I'd like to ask for maybe 5 or 6 or 7, 8 of you, if you just come down to the altar and kind of pray as we go through our time of invitation. So what we want to do, remember what the team said. We want to know what the will of God is, and then we want to do what the will of God is. If God says no, we respect no. If God says yes, then we move forward. So, if you ever, everybody, if you would, stand up, and I'm going to say the prayer, and then we'll roll into. So, Lord God in heaven, we thank you for providing us with information. And my prayer is that everyone would pray diligently to seek and know what your will is. And this is my request of you, God, that you would have your Spirit confirm what you want in our hearts, so that we know yea or nay when the time comes. That we'll know what the will of God is, and we'll know that you have spoken to your people, because your people want to do what your will is. Lord, we ask this in all things in the name of Jesus. Amen.